Morning.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning, sir.
Great. Let's wait for 1 or 2 minutes. 39, 38 people have joined in. All right. Good morning, Aditya. I was trying to figure out my screen sharing problem yesterday, and surprisingly, it doesn't happen with any other meeting or training. Yeah, I think it's okay for now. Right. So while everybody else is coming in, I want to ask you something. I'm sharing a link with you on the chat window. And the question here is, what is your dream job? Right? You can even choose maybe more than one option if you want to. So let me edit it and let me say, what is your dream job or jobs? Right? So just for our internal understanding, I want to get a sense of what is the batch diversity. Some of you might be interested in finance, some of you might be interested in marketing, some of you might not have decided. That's completely okay. When I started my MBA, I was also not sure what I wanted to do, right? But whatever comes to your mind, if you can share that, and I think it would also be interesting to see what other people are saying, right? Because all of you are going to be with each other for a year and a half. So it's very important to see what is your peer group saying, what is the sort of competition that you have, because all of you will be competing and will also be supporting each other, right? So I've shared the link on the chat window. If all of you can please open this and answer this. Right? Even though today's session is on consulting, but I thought before talking about what is the role of consulting, is it something that you are interested in doing? If so, then how should you pursue it? Let's see. Okay, so I can see somebody said inclined towards HR. All right. Data analytics and finance. All right. Finance more specifically as an investment banker. Excellent. Not decided. All right. Consulting and product management. Okay. So do you see how already within the first 5, 6 responses, you see that there is a lot of variety that has started coming in? Starting something on your own, currently not decided what I should be doing. We'll figure this out after the industry for some time. Okay. Finance and marketing. All right. Great. Let's wait for more responses, then I'll answer this one by one, right? Oh, all the very best for that. You want to be an entrepreneur, all right. Marketing, but not in the sales profile, okay. Financial research analyst, all right. Not sure, but HR seems interesting, okay. Is there some profile where we use IT skills like coding? Ankit, that is an easy answer. So that would only be in a data analyst profile where you'll be coding. There are possibilities where you're in finance or HR and you're also coding, but it's those are very few. There are very few jobs and very few profiles out there. So if an organization has, let's say, 150 people in HR, at most there would be one person or two people who will be coding in that, right? So most likely you will end up as a data analyst. Product management, sports organization. Okay, you know what? A lot of responses are there. Let me try to talk to you a little bit about all of this, right? Now, see, data analytics and finance, to be very honest, do not go much with each other because financial analytics is quite different. So when you're working in finance, that means that you have already decided your specialization, your function area. Let's not call it a specialization. Let us call it a function area, right? Data analytics is more of a general profile. Like I'm a data analyst and I work with some investment banking firms. I work with the big four. I work with consumer packaged goods companies as well, right? But if you're interested in both of them, if you're interested in data a lot and you're interested in finance, then probably financial analytics is a good idea for you, right? And in that case, Power Query, Visual Basic, Excel is very, very important to you, right? If you're in HR, see, HR has different types of areas. One is the software area. So let me also write down these things. So in HR, one is the software area where, so for financial analytics, we have VBA and Excel and Power Query, right? Very, very important, right? If you're in HR, there are different options that you have. So one are these software areas where you will have, let's say, training and development, right? Or you have what is called OTD, organization, training and development. But see, the thing is that these areas usually are taken up by people who are coming from a SCM HRD, from a human resources background or a specialization in HR, or they are taken by people who come from TIS. How many specializations do you have in this program? Can somebody just confirm that? So your MBA is going to be in what? Is it a general MBA? Is it a GBO MBA?
General MBA.
It's a general MBA. So you will have options to take different specializations, is it?
Yes.
But what if there are only 3 people in one specialization? Is that still offered?
Yes, sir. There are people who are in different specializations.
So basically, finance, marketing, operations, IT, HR, all of these will be there, right?
Majorly, there are finance, marketing, and operations in SRCCTV.
Okay. And HR as well?
There are very few companies which visit for HR basically.
Sure. All right. Okay. Gives me a
Maybe
sense.
a couple or two.
Right.
One or
See, in HR, one is the training and development and the OTD side, organization training and development. And you also have recruitment. But see, recruitment again will be handled mostly by people who are coming from a psychology background, right? After doing analytics and all, these areas at least don't involve a lot of analytics in it, right? But then there are some other areas of HR. So you have what is called R&R, which is rewards and recognition, right? And then you have CNB, which is compensation and benefits. So rewards and recognition and compensation benefit usually go with each other. It is about the mapping of the salary, right? To understand how to do performance evaluation of people. So we create something called a performance potential matrix. All HR people should read about it. It is called the performance potential matrix. It's a 9-box grid like this. And it can be used by any function, but it's mostly used in HR. We will try to understand that an individual is where. For example, if the individual is poor and poor, that basically means that that's 1 and 1, right? Then you have 3, 3, which means the person is very good on performance and very good in potential. Let me show you a different one like this, right? So who are the bad hires? People who are neither performing nor do they have the potential. What about somebody who has a lot of potential but is not performing? We consider them as somebody who's very good but is not given the right opportunity. Maybe they're not in the right profile or in the right location. Then you have these guys, which means that the potential is not very high, they're working very, very hard, right? So they will not probably grow a lot in the organization. They will not become a leader, but they are very, very hardworking, right? Then you have these core players, which are somewhere in the middle, and then stars, high potential, high performance. Can you tell me, as an organization, ideally, if you have, let's say, 1,000 people, where would you like your people to be? All Fortune 500, 1,000 companies create the performance potential matrix. Can you tell me, where would people?
Core, basically core and high potential. Is it like some managerial grid? This grid is like managerial grid, which we talk about how employees should function.
It is not about how employees should function. It is about how employees have functioned.
Have
So
fun.
after, for example, it's July of 2021. So when I will do a quarterly review, right, to see how have my employees performed in the last 3 months, then I will look at their performance, right? I will also look at their potential. Fine, somebody's performance might be good, not excellent, but they have the potential to grow a lot, right? Because maybe they have done a online certification or something like that, right? So this is a performance assessment. 9-box grid is very useful when you're planning succession. So you want to plan for the next 2 to 3 years, who will get promoted in the next 2 years, who has the potential to move into a different role in the next 3 years, or you decide who is not a good fit for the organization, and maybe you want to, fire them, like that. Who should get a bigger incentive, right? Because incentives are very important, right? And usually organizations have an annual incentive cycle. So it's very important to understand who should get a higher incentive, who should get a lower incentive, right? Okay, now usually we say that it should be a bell curve, right? Which means it should be like this, right? Which is one of the things that we learn in statistics, which is normal distribution. Ideally, an organization should have a few people who are the top performers, right, who are the stars, and they should have a few people who are bad hires, which are on the other end of the spectrum, like this. Most of the people will be in the center, like this. Now, can you tell me if an organization looks like this? If an organization looks like this, where there are a lot of high performers, is it good or is it bad? If an organization has 1,000 people and 700 of them are stars, is it good or is it bad?
Good.
It's not good.
It's
Why is it
not
not
good,
good?
sir. Sir, because if they are perform, then the competition will grow in the market, and they have to
Exactly.
perform better.
There are many reasons for why an organization would not want a lot of stars. Reason number one, if everybody is coming at a star, that means that maybe your performance evaluation is not very strict. Because if your performance evaluation is strict, that means that most of the people should not be stars, number one. Number two, if they are so good, then they will have a lot of opportunities in the market and they might switch, they might jump to some other company. Third, even if they are loyal to your company, you will not have the opportunity to give everybody a promotion. Because if out of 1,000 people, 200 people say that we are all getting a 5 out of 5 rating, how will you give that appraisal and that promotion to all of them? So usually in an organization, the skewness is not considered a good thing. Ideally, you would want, like I showed you, a normal distribution, which means that the extremes should be lesser, and in the middle, you should have more. It's not exactly like this, but the idea is that it's normally distributed. It is never skewed. Makes sense, everyone? So you'll have to pay a high salary, you'll have to give more bonus. Now, since we are discussing all this, I quickly want to show you, because today's session is on consulting. I want to show you how organizations do this, right? So please watch this, everyone. So this is a project that I have done with many different clients. I help them create a 9-box grid. For example, these are different employees in the organization, right? This is real data, okay, by the way, for Sterlite Power, which is a part of the Vedanta group. So I can see in the solutions business, let's say in HR and admin, we have Manish, or maybe let's say Mohit Mathur. And Mohit Mathur has an employee called Neha Tara, right? So when I click on view form, what it will do is it will tell me, do you see this, everyone? The This is obviously, I can't show you the data, but you get the idea. This is how we create the performance potential matrix. So we tell where is that person going to be? Is it going to be 1133 or some other number? Right? So I can see these are details of the employee. I can see the previous career history. I can see potential. So what is their ability, aspiration, alignment? What is their performance in the last year? In H1, in H2. H1 being the first 6 months, H2 being the next 6 months. Then I have the impact of loss, attrition risk, and potential successes. And then I have other comments like what are their strengths, what are the development areas, like this. See, there's a lot of planning an organization has to do. It's not about hiring more people. When you hire people, you invest a lot of time and money in it. You want to make sure that people stay loyal to the firm. Right? Let me show you one other example of the same performance potential matrix. So this is going to be strange. Just give me a moment. Okay, never mind. I'll open it directly from the folder. So this would be Metropolis Talent Tracker. And I want you to look at this. Slight variation, but the same idea. We are creating a performance potential matrix, right? So on the left side, you can see all the details of the employee. Here I can see the job details. I can see the development details, potential details, the role path. See, like this, an organization has to plan that what can we expect the person to pick up in the next 1 year. So we expect that in the next 1 year, they might become a manager. In the next 2 years, they might become a skip level manager. That means one level above. And then maybe in 5 years, they can become the CEO of the company. Okay? Like this. Then we also say, what is the readiness level? So there is no fixed rule that it has to be done in a certain way. Like this person is coming where? 1 on performance, but 3 on potential. That means the person has a lot of potential, but at the moment, they're not performing very well. And there might be different reasons for that, right? Then we have something called hypo. Hypo basically means high potential. Who are the hypo employees, right? Does this help you all get a sense of, when you work in data analytics and even otherwise in HR, what is the sort of work that you're expected to do? So this would be on the rewards and recognition and the compensation benefits side. Okay, let's go back to the questions. Then we come to finance as an investment banker. See, as an investment banker, so I work with D. Shaw, right, which is one of the most prestigious investment banking firms in the world. Excel, Power BI, right? Your world will start and end at these 2 points. Obviously, your theoretical subject knowledge has to be there, but these two are the most important things for you, right? I also want to show you what sort of analysis we do as an investment banker, right? I will show you exactly from D. Shaw. For those of you who do not know what D. Shaw is, I think I mentioned it many times earlier. I'll open it once again. So D. Shaw, everybody, is an investment banking firm. And D. Shaw is, how should I show it to you? Once again, show it on Wikipedia only. So D. Shaw was started by D. Shaw, and it's not very old, right? It's about 25, 30 years old. And David Shaw, who started it, is now a billionaire, right? And one of the most famous people who worked with D. Shaw is Jeff Bezos from Amazon, right? Jeff Bezos, before he started Amazon, was working with D. Shaw. And it's so interesting that he's running a retail company now. He was actually an investment banker to begin with, right? So he was working with D. Shaw, a hedge fund, and then he realized the potential at which the online retail sector is growing, right? And he realized that if something is growing so fast, I have to get into that area. So he left D. Shaw and he started working. So D. Shaw is not a very large firm, but it's in terms of the prestige, it's one of the highest, right? So they have about $50 billion AUM, which is assets under management. That is what they're operating. And their headquarters is in New York, which I have also taught at the New York office. And of course, in India, they have a branch as well in Hyderabad. So with D. Shaw, I do trainings on Tableau, Power BI, and Excel. Right? These guys are brilliant, right? So if you're in investment banking, I would say 70 to 80% of your work happens on Excel, and Excel at a very, very deep level, right? Of course, they also have some data science people who work on Python, R and all, but then predominantly their work happens on Excel. Financial models are not created on Python. Financial models are created on Excel. Now I want to show you something that I taught them in the training, so that you get a sense of exactly what is it that these guys learn. Look at this. These are the type of examples I covered for them. I covered New York Stock Exchange financial ratios. I covered stock histories. I covered the euro US dollar forex pair, right? So I basically saw the bid and the ask price. I will not get into details right now because you guys will be taught this in the Saturday training by Sanjay. He will do a much better job. But the idea is that this is the type of data you're working on, right? Look at this one. Look at the NASDAQ stock history, right? Like this. Very simple data. So we have date, the volume, the open value, high value, low, close, adjusted close, and the symbol. These are the different companies, right? All of you who were thinking, oh, is the data large? No, the data is not really large. The data is just very simple data. And now let me show you what I did for them, right? What type of solutions we created on Power BI. Watch this. So this training happened on the 2nd of July. And now this was the intermediate batch. Now I have an advanced batch that will be next month in August, right? Okay, look at this. So very similar to what we studied, but a little more detailed, right? So here we created basically the quarter-wise movement. So I was able to see let me just go back to the year. So I was able to see for my financial years, right? I created a tooltip where I saw the P ratio, PB ratio, and the ESG ranking. ESG is environment sustainability goals, right? Then we had a step chart. This is a slightly modified line chart, which is called a step chart. This is mostly used for financial analytics, right? Where I'm able to compare two sectors with each other, right? So I can compare auto and FMCG sector, and I can compare two of them. Okay. Right. Then we had line chart. This we already did. But do you see how in the formatting department we have made a few changes which we did not cover? Then we did some more advanced topics. For example, I showed them how to calculate the difference between two sectors. So I want to compare the auto and the bank sector. So here we were able to see that the difference between auto and bank is 11.78. Here the difference is 205. All of this was done using a calculation like this. Right? So these are DAX calculations, very advanced topic in Power BI. But just to give you a sense what type of dashboard, this was a combination chart. We created a ribbon chart. Remember we had done this, which tells us the change happening quarter by quarter. After that, we saw the month over month change. We created a waterfall chart to see the stepwise increment. We created a dot plot. Then we created a scatter chart. We also done the scatter chart, remember, like this. So here I can see the different companies that are listed on NASDAQ and how they're shifting over time. Right? And then what else? Then we did the table, we did our matrix, then we did the tree map with the tooltip. This also I told you. And then some other small things. These options you don't have because you don't have an account right now. But this is called the pulse chart, which basically shows you the pulse like this, right? Then you have a donut chart, which allows you to basically drill down in your data. Right? So the point is, I'm just trying to show you that what you have learned, don't you feel like 70% of that has been, and this is an intermediate level training. It's not a basic training. These people have been working on Power BI for many years now. Right? But don't you feel that it's so similar to what you have studied? What is the next step for all of you? Those of you who want to be in financial analysis or in analytics or in hedge fund, M&A. For you, it is important to go very deep in these software. Your focus should be very clear. Excel, you have to know very, very well. And then you have to start working on Power BI, right? Okay. Also, if you want to do some online internships, you can go to a website called Forage. Right? offer virtual internships. They call it a work experience, not just an internship. And I think a lot of it is free as well that you will have to check. So basically, once, let me just quickly sign in once. So let us say you want to do an internship in, if we just pick one, let's say BCG, right? You just select BCG and you can see there are different programs that they're offering. Like this is a analytics virtual experience program, right? And remember, it is free, right? So it's free of cost. And it's not just analytics. They also tell you the theory. And the best part is the content has been created directly by the company, right? So all MBA students from top colleges are doing it, not just in India, but worldwide. So this is something you should definitely have a look at, right? The Forage. It was called Inside Sherpa earlier. So earlier it was called Inside Sherpa, but now they did a rebranding, and now Inside Sherpa is called the Forage. Right? Definitely a must see. Okay, don't skip out on this. Everybody should have a look at this. Okay, let's look at the chat as well. Most welcome, Rahul. Okay, consulting and product management seem interesting and would like to understand. I'm not answering that question right now because I am going to talk about consulting in much more detail in this session, right? Data analytics or in finance, but outside India. My only suggestion to you would be, if you're looking outside India, start interacting with people outside the country, because how work happens in India is very different to how it happens outside. It's very easy to say that, but analytics is analytics, right? Like if I'm doing M&A, then mergers and acquisition in India, how will it be different to India? There's a lot of difference. Some laws are different, the regulations are different, right? The structure of firms are different, the salaries, the fees that you're paid are different. So the way companies function, the fiscal years are different. So everything is different. So please make sure that if you're applying, any of you have an interest to do something outside the country, please make sure. I will not be able to help you a lot in that regard because my work is predominantly in India. But if you are interested in working outside India, please make sure to find some people who will be able to help you with that. Right? Okay, finance will be discussed on Saturday in more detail. What are the different career opportunities? Okay. Yeah, this I'm not very sure about, because the thing is that even if you look at the top B schools, and when I say the top, I'm referring to the top 10, there's nothing wrong with starting in sales. In fact, most marketing guys start with sales, right? Because how can you be a product manager, or how can you be a brand manager or a category manager if you do not even understand how sales works? Try to understand. At the end of the day, whether you are handling a brand, let's say you're the brand manager for um, Suzuki, Maruti Suzuki, Swift Desire, right? Or you're the brand manager for, let's say, Vodafone, right? At the end of the day, your job is just to sell more, but the person who's selling is not you. You're indirectly contributing to the sales. At the end of the day, the person who's selling something in the market is a sales team. If you need to understand how the retail structure works, how customers react to your product, what they like, what they dislike, you get a sense of the market, you get a feel for the market. That will not happen if you do not start in sales. Like I started my career with Reckitt, and even though I left in 3 years, we had a trajectory where after working for 4 years, we would have come in a different profile. But the idea is that that was very important, because if you don't start with sales, then you miss out on a lot of learnings, right? And even internationally, it's very unlikely that you will get a job directly in marketing, not because you're not capable, because it doesn't make sense. Anybody in the corporate world has started with sales. You have to, right? So I would like you to think about it, speak to maybe your alumni, and do not dismiss sales just like that. Sales is not meant for people who don't have good grades, and people who are not able to do other things. It's only in India that sales is looked as a bad thing, right? Internationally, if you look at Europe, if you look at US, international MBAs, sales is considered one of the best profiles. Only the best people get into sales. Okay. It's only in India that the connotation is very different. We feel that, oh, somebody who will not get, who's not smart enough to be in finance, or is not creative enough to be in marketing, they will get a sales job. That's not true at all. Sales is one of the most challenging profiles, one of the profiles that will teach you the most. And if you listen to podcasts or any interviews by any CEO, they will all tell you, please start your career in sales. I was a gold medalist in my MBA. I was from a mid-tier college. I was not from a premier college, but I was a gold medalist, right? And I opted for a sales profile, right? I mean, I could have gone wherever I wanted to, but I opted for a sales profile because I realized that this is very important for me to step out of my comfort zone and spend a few years there, right? I'm not forcing you, of course. I'm just sharing my experiences with you, but please definitely think a lot more about it. Don't dismiss sales just like that, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm not really sure what to say. I really feel you should get some work experience, unless you just want to start your own business. But it's going to be much more challenging if you don't have experience behind you, right? Like, I worked for many years before coming into business. That would be my suggestion. But then, of course, it depends entirely on you. So there's a lot of difference between analytics and consulting, between analytics consulting and consulting. I've already written down all these things that I'll be covering for you. I was preparing my notes yesterday. I'll discuss this, right? Your thoughts. So I'll explain you how different it is. Product management is post organization and start my own fitness center. That's very specific. I'm not really sure how I'll be able to help you with that. Um, Maybe you can connect with me later, but I don't have any experience as such in that area, so I'll not be able to help you with that. Operations, supply chain. Okay. If you're in supply chain and operations, some certifications are very important, right? So supply chain certification, right? Now there are lots of certifications available. So you have a CPIM, you have a APSCM, then you have certifications like Six Sigma, right? That KPMG offers, many other firms offer it. So certifications are very, very important when you're in these areas. There is also something called PMP. Of course, PMP is much broader. It's not related specifically to operations. So, but this is an internationally recognized designation, and it's quite hard, right? So you need to have, I think there is some work experience that you require before you attempt this. And you notice there are 10 lakh PMP certified individuals in the world, which is not a lot, considering how prestigious it is to be a PMP. But this is, if you're in project management, I think PMP is fantastic. See, originally these roles like product manager wasn't there, right? We only had a project management professional, which was typically in logistics, supply chain operations, right? Very recently now with technology firms and even in consumer brands, now you see there is a new role called product manager. 5-7 years back, there was nothing called a product manager, right? It is only recently come in. So originally PMP and all started with, like I said, supply chain operations. Now it has some people from other areas also have started doing it, right? Definitely have a look at this. Others might skip it. I don't think it's important for others, but if you're in supply chain operation, this is very important for you. Politics. So I don't know if you know this. I don't think you would, but I have a lot of background in political research. So when I was running Decode Research Analytics, I don't know if it's a joke or you really mean it. I'm assuming that you really mean it. So if you are in politics, then I did a lot of work. So I was running a private limited firm called Decode Research and Analytics, and my co-director was the son-in-law of the mayor of Ghaziabad. His father was a MLA from Muzaffarnagar. His uncle is a Rajya Sabha member of parliament. So we've done a lot of work. I've done work with ministries directly. I have worked directly with um, cabinet ministers and different minister of states. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that, whether you want to get into hardcore politics or from a consulting point of view. But yeah, I'll be happy to share my learnings with you at any point, right, in the future. Yeah, Prashant Kishore, of course, is one in many, is one who got successful, but there are many others who did not. I have done a lot of political work. So if you go to my website, I don't know, I'm not sure if you guys had a look at it or not, but I did a lot of work, not like Prashant Kishore, but similar to that. So if you look at my website, all these surveys were done by me, right? So Business World Magazine, you will see Havish M Consulting at the bottom, right? I'm now stopped doing this work for a variety of reasons, but I spent 2 to 3 years working on this a lot. So I would do these government surveys, political surveys, pre-poll surveys, right? um, I did, so Decode is the firm that I was running, Decode Research and Analytics. So we also did surveys on the cabinet ministers. We did a performance evaluation on them, right? We worked with with the financial budget that came in. So all of these reports have been done by me. And yeah, I mean, that's a different part of my career journey, but this is not something I do anymore. But whatever learnings I have, if you would like to discuss something with me, I'll be happy to do that. So this is another one that we did. So we created a list of the top ministers, right? Look at this one. So we did a survey where we said that in since independence, who have been the best ministers in each portfolio, right? So we said these are the top 3 PMs that India has had. These are the top 3 FMs and the railway ministers. Right? So I have a lot of experience in this area. All right. Yeah. So Prashant Kishore type means that you have to be very deep into analytics, because now whoever is working, you have to be in analytics. Let's be honest. It is not about gut instinct and all of that. Of course, that experience and expertise is there, but analytics is very, very important for you, right? So just keep that in mind. Okay. Between marketing and consulting, maybe finance and doubt. That's okay. It's like I said, after my first year of MBA, I was still not sure what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do HR, and I ended up in marketing and finance, right? So it's okay to be confused, but you should take action to reduce that confusion, right? I hope that makes sense. It's okay to say now that I don't know what I want to do, but after 3 months, you should have some level of clarity, right? Investment banking or in marketing, I would really suggest that you pick one and put your efforts in that, because these areas are so different that you can't pay attention to both of them, right? So I think you should really focus on one, take a month or 2 months and decide which one you are interested in, and put all your energies, do the certification, start learning, start reading, start interacting in that area, because these are very different to each other. Market research or digital marketing. Um, yeah, digital marketing is a fantastic field, but if you want to be in digital marketing, analytics is only a part of digital marketing. Just remember that. The entire gamut of digital marketing is not analytics, right? There are many more things in it. So you will have to learn what is social media marketing, right? You will have to learn what is SEO. You will have to learn what is SMM, right? So you have to understand what is SEO versus SEM. In terms like what is CPM, what is the cost per mil, what are impressions, all of these things you will have to do. If you're interested in digital marketing, I suggest you go to IAB. It is a body which is the Interactive Advertising Bureau. It's one of the leading bodies in the world, and you should definitely have a look at this. Right, iab.com. This is one. The other you can do is to go to a website called Marketing Land. So 2 websites that I'm giving you, everyone. The first one is, have they changed the website? Let me open it directly then. No, I think the name has changed now. Spelling mistake. Yeah, I think they've renamed it. So it's Martech now, and you should definitely have a look at this, right? So IAB is specifically for advertising. Martech is for everything related to marketing. And then if you want to read from an Indian context, I suggest you go to a website called Impact on Net. It is a weekly magazine that comes. It has been running for about 10 years now. And a lot of my um, learning and my experience, my knowledge of marketing has come from Impact. I've also done a lot of work with them. So on Impact, you can go to e-paper. Everything is free of cost. And you see that they have the entire back history of magazines available like this. Do you see this, everyone? So you can just select the date, just select the year, and you have the, haven't they updated it? I'm sorry, let me just check that once. Okay, I haven't been here in a while. Let me just quickly check. No, we don't want to be on Realty Plus. Why is it showing me Realty Plus? We want to go to e-paper. Oh, I'm sorry, I opened the wrong one. So we want to open Impact. And here you can see that they have the entire back catalog of issues available. Do you see this? And this is crazy. This is for free. You don't even have to spend any money on this. And this goes back to 2012, right? 2014 is when I started working with them. If you read it thoroughly, you'll find my name in a lot of these issues as well. It's amazing. I mean, this is some of the best content, the best interviews with the most experienced people in the industry that you will find on this, right? Whenever I speak to B School students, I always tell them, please read Impact. I mean, it's almost crazy that it is available for free and you're not reading it. I just don't know what to say, right? I mean, this is the best content that you will have, right? The best people in the industry, right? Definitely read this. It's called Impact on Net, right? So IAB.com, Martech.org, and Impact on It from a marketing perspective, right? Product management, advertising, branding, right? All of that. Okay. Market research is quite different to digital marketing. So I think you should take a call. Are you interested in marketing research or in digital marketing? I don't think you can do both of them. There is an overlap as well, a little bit, but then I suggest that you pick one. This I've already answered. Consulting, I'll speak about. What sort of certification skills? I'll also talk about this. Private equity or venture capital, I don't think I'm the right person to answer that. You can ask Sanjay on Saturday. And an OD consultant. I think we have already discussed HR. Okay. Now let's quickly come back to what all I want to discuss with you. So I'll share some brand names. I'll share some links with you, some YouTube channels with you, right? Some preparation material for you, and just give you a perspective of what are the areas which are there in consulting and why a little bit of consulting knowledge is important to everybody. So even if you don't want to become a consultant, you will still do some consulting work for your clients, no? Maybe for your manager or maybe for your internal team. So consulting doesn't mean that you're actually a consultant. Of course, this is meant for those people who want to become a true consultant. But then some part of our role will involve, after an MBA, some part of your role will always involve some level of consulting in it. Okay, but before I start, anything anyone would like to ask so far? Just take a minute and let me know if you have any questions. I'll answer that and then we'll continue. Is there any portal where we can read research papers of IIM faculty? Nikita, you will have to check with your faculty because I'm sure Shriram College of Commerce will have access to some portals because most of these are paid, right? So it would not be possible to get them for free. One option for you is to go to Google Scholar. Right? So Google Scholar will have a lot of research papers in it. So you can go to Google Scholar and just search for the name. Like I have a lot of research papers as well. So if you search for my name, then you will get some papers that I have written. Siddhant, it is mandatory. If you're in finance and learning VBA is mandatory. You might still get a job if you don't know VBA, but at some point VBA will be required. Maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. But as a finance professional, if you know Visual Basic, you immediately have an advantage compared to other people. Is that simple, right? Now, if you say, but that person is in finance and they don't know VBA, I can't say anything to you. Of course, there'll be people who are in that area and who don't know how to work on VBA. But if you ask me, because I work with so many clients, whenever you know have VBA knowledge, you have an upper edge compared to other people, right? So I hope that answers the question. Right. Right, Nikita, so you can have a look at this, but also ask your faculty because they should have access to some, like, uh, if you go to Emerald.
Yes, actually, the portal was asking for some like college name so
Yeah.
that we can access.
Yeah. So it depends on what level of access has been given to you. I'm sure that some access will be given to you, or maybe you can borrow some access from your, because see, the free ones that are available online are crappy. They're not good. Let's be honest. The good ones are like Emerald. Emerald is one of the best publishers in the world, right?
Okay.
But then all of this will be paid. You can get some free ones as well, some free articles, but most of the good content will be paid. You will have to get access from a faculty.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Let's come back. Okay. Now, so consulting is not something which is very well defined because it can mean different things for different people, right? And consulting can be in very different areas. So it can be strategy consulting, it can be management consulting, it can be in operations, financial advisory, HR, IT, or many other things, or it can be in data analytics as well, right? The point is that when we talk about the firms, when we talk about consulting firms, we are usually referring to the big four, the big three, and there are many others as well, right? Two channels that I would urge all of you to look at, especially if you want to get into consulting, you should definitely look at it. Even if you're not interested in consulting, you should at least spend some time on it. The first one is Inside IIM, right? I think I've already mentioned this earlier, but I'll open it once again. So let's come to Inside IIM. Started by ex-IIM pass-outs, and now they're doing very well. They have over 2 lakh subscribers, over 1,200 videos. And what they have done is they basically have conversations, interviews, panel discussions with ex B school students who are now working in different profiles, focusing right now on consulting, but in different areas as well. Now, see, this phase you have already crossed, right? Pre-MBA. How to appear for the MBA interview, that phase you've already crossed. How to prepare for the CAT exam, all that is irrelevant to you now. Now you'll be focusing more on what comes afterwards, right? So, like, I'll tell you one. So look at this one. Why is the ad playing? Just give me a moment. I'll just change my account so that we don't have to watch the ads. Havish. Okay. So Saurabh was working with Zomato. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but I think he was the ex-VP sales of Zomato. And he spoke about what are the challenges he faced in his role in sales? What did he find exciting, and how this IT and IM tag had literally no value when he was doing sales. It's a must watch. I think everybody should watch this because he was a B school student just like you are. He decided to choose a career in sales, and at a time in Zomato when Zomato was just starting. So his story is on the lines of how they used to go store by store and scan their menus. This is not the Zomato that we know today, but long back. So Inside IIM has a lot of wonderful content, and I really feel that all of you should have a look at this because you will learn so much. Now the question is that there are 1,100 videos. How are you going to figure out what to watch, what not to watch? But see, that really depends on you. You will have to sift through it, right? So you can't watch all of it. Nobody can. But you will have to just go through it and see which one do you feel is relevant to you right now. For example, something related to internships. Maybe right now is a little early. You should at least wait for your internships to start. That's going to take a long time. That's next year. So maybe these videos you can skip. Now, the life of an IIM Ahmedabad alumni at Tata Administrative Services, not relevant to you. You're not going to get into tasks, right? So what's the point of watching something like this? So you have to be a little selective in terms of what you want to watch, right? This is one. The other thing The other thing they do is they speak to a lot of students after their internship. So where people share their internship journey. So they share what they learned, what are the mistakes they made, what they would have done differently. And I think that's a wonderful way of you to have that knowledge before you start your internships or your life projects, right? The second channel is by this guy called Akshat Srivastava. So Akshat runs a website called Cases Over Coffee. Cases Over Coffee, and I'll not tell you what it is. It's a website that has case studies when you're preparing for consulting roles. And Akshat has a very good background. So Akshat comes from, how should I show it to you? 1 second. So Akshat is an INSEAD pass out, and he worked with BCG and Dalberg, I think. Yeah, he worked with BCG and Dalberg. He's from INSEAD, and right. So he was working with BCG earlier, and he did his MBA from INSEAD. This guy is brilliant, right? And the way he talks about not just analytics or consulting, but general things, for example, importance of networking, um, conversation styles, how should you plan your finances, what is cryptocurrency, why should you invest in it, so it's a little bit of everything, and it's really, really good. I mean, you should definitely have a look at this, right? Again, I mean, I love it. Maybe you might find somebody else better, but I'm fairly confident that you will really like the content that Akshat has, right? And Akshat's pedigree is unmatchable, right? So you should definitely have a look at this. Okay, now in terms of firms, we all know the big four and the big three, right? So we have the big four, which are in professional services, which would be Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC. Now, we usually consider this as accounting firms, even though right now they're not just in accounting, they have branched in many different areas. So if you're applying as a consultant, there are consulting roles coming in big fours as well, right? Even though originally they were accounting firms, right? So they're offering audit, assurance, taxation, actuarial, corporate finance, legal, indirect taxation, forensics, all of that. But now they also have these consulting arms in it. Right? So in a way, they are competing with the BCG, a Bain, and a McKinsey, but they are much cheaper. They're still very costly, but they will be much cheaper than compared to the big three. Right? Right. Okay. So these are the big four, and then you have the big three. So the big three are your what we call the MBB, which is McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. Right. Now, McKinsey, BCG, and Bain only go to target colleges. So there are only a limited number of colleges that they go to recruit. Even though now things are changing quite a bit in the sense that now you can also do a lateral movement. So after 4 or 5 years of experience, if you're doing well, you can always apply to these firms like that as well. They're more open to it. But traditionally, these guys recruit directly from colleges, and these guys spend many years working with the firm. And once you're working with a big three, then you mostly move between the big three only. Like you would not see a big three guy moving to a PwC. That very rarely happens, right? Okay, but these are not the only ones in the market. These seven. There are many others. So we all know the big three, but there are many others in the market as well. So Deloitte has a consulting arm, right? Oliver Wyman is one of the big ones. Then you have Booz Hamilton. You have Parthenon. PwC has an arm. A.T. Kearney is quite big. Accenture, most of you would know. And some of these might be new names to you, like Strategy and is a very small team in India, about 75 people, but it's a part of the PwC network now. I have taught them in the past. Gartner is focusing more on technology consulting, right? So like this, you can go through it. I'm sure ZS, a lot of you would have heard of. ZS also does a lot of hiring from colleges. Okay? Now, what is the point of looking at a list like this? See, the point is that even if you're not going to apply to these firms, You can still go to YouTube and say that, let's say I want to do a McKinsey case interview. Right? The best part is that there are videos given by unofficial channels like this, but there are official videos given by McKinsey as well, right? Which teaches you what is McKinsey looking at, what is consulting, what are the type of questions they ask in an interview, what do they expect the candidate to answer, right? Everybody should watch this. Even if you're not interested in consulting, you should definitely watch it. There's just so much to learn by watching this, and you have the guys who are working with these firms helping you understand how to prepare. Right? There's really nothing better than that. Right? Okay. Now, in consulting case, so we call them case interviews, right? Because consulting interviews are very different to normal interviews. The idea of a consulting interview is that they give you a case, right? They give you time to read it, and then you have to not just give one answer or three answers. You have to tell them how did you come up with the answer, right? For example, I might, let me just see if I can find a good video here. One second. Like, look at this one. This is a mock consulting interview by Bain. And this is a great way to see how an interview really happened. And like I said, even if you're not interested in consulting per se, even otherwise, I think it's a great learning for all of you. Right? Will an MBA in global business operations be helpful in getting consulting roles over MBA in finance? Rahul, I think more so than the specialization or the type of MBA that you're doing, it is the target colleges, right? Because if you're in consulting, then firms come to specific target colleges, right? I'm not sure what sort of companies come to SRCC. You will have to check with your seniors on that. But yeah, I mean, that's the point. Because if you apply externally, it's quite difficult. Mostly when an organization comes to a college, that is where they will be hiring people. So I don't think it's much to do with the specialization as such, it's to do with the target colleges that are there. Again, I think the seniors might be better at answering this question than I am. Right? But I don't think you're at any disadvantage as such. You can also prepare and you can apply externally. Maybe not in the top 10, 15 firms, but maybe the next bracket. So this is very important to watch these interviews, and you can just type case interview and you have a lot of mock interviews available like this. So what I wanted to show you was that give you a case, they will explain the case to you a little bit, and you see what the candidate is doing. The candidate has to write down things. And when you're explaining to the interviewer, you have to show the interviewer what you have written. And the interviewer will also be interested to see what you wrote. See, the idea of an interview is not like there is a 6 feet difference between the distance between the interviewer and you. Typically, how a standard interview happens, though, they ask you questions and what is your favorite subject, and they ask you questions from that area. It's not like that. In this, they really want to see, can you act like a consultant? So everything that you do, the way you jot down notes, the way you're able to present and articulate your thoughts, everything matters, right? It's quite different. And if you want to learn all of this in more detail, the best website in the world is this guy called Victor Cheng, right? Victor Cheng. You can just go to Victor Cheng. He's the guy. And Victor Cheng is something that everybody follows internationally. He runs a website called caseinterview.com. And he explains you all these basic topics that consulting firms expect you to know. For example, something called MEES, right? MEES is what I also teach at PwC and EY. And this is a concept that is used across all consulting firms. We call it mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So if you remember the scatter chart that we created yesterday on Tableau, right? Where I also had created the k-means, the analytics, right? Where we created those clusters. That is what we call a MEES, in the sense that every single group was homogeneous. That means that collectively, mutually, they were exclusive. So every group was different to the other group, but mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. But collectively, they encompassed all of the different types of groups. So what I'm trying to say is that one group has 100 customers, they're all similar, but all the groups between themselves are different to each other. So there are these type of topics that you will learn. And again, how do you learn these things? By going to websites like this, right? Also remember that consulting is a very tough profile, which requires you to be very self-motivated, extremely ambitious. Uh, you have to love traveling because you'll be traveling, 3-4 days a week. Um, you'll be taking early morning flights, late night flights, and consulting requires you to always keep on relearning. It's not about being an expert in one area, saying that, okay, I'm an expert in FMCG or in the telecom sector, and I will only work on the telecom sector. In management consulting, what happens is that today I'll be doing a project on, let's say, the energy and power sector. Tomorrow I'll be working with Britannia and helping them sell biscuits. The job of a consultant is not to have an expertise in one sector. Typically, a consultant will keep on hopping from one to the other. But once you rise up the ladder, then of course you become a director or a partner in one area. But usually in the beginning, that is how you work, right? And the best part about consulting, 50 to 60 hours? Are you kidding me? Just hold on, okay? North of 50 to 55 hours, okay, on average. It's very conservative. It will definitely be more than that. Also keep in mind that you will spend a lot of your time, not even 10% of employees would work less than 40 hours per week. Basically, 90% of employees are spending more time than that. Forget a comfortable life, okay? If you like to sleep late and have a lot of time for your social exercises and you like to go out, forget all of that, right? This is your standard week. Get up at 4 a.m., get ready by 4:30, reach the airport by 5, take a flight, land with the client, and then come back in the night. I work as a data analytics consultant. This is how work is. It's tough work, okay? You can expect to spend 70, 80, 90 hours a week, right? Many, many times. All specializations, Nikita. So consulting is not just from one specialization because consultants are there everywhere. So strategy, management, operations, IT, analytics. Consulting is consulting. You're helping organizations with every function, right? So it's not that consulting is only in one area. Right? But typically when we talk about consulting, we refer to management consulting, but consulting will be in all areas. Right? Any questions so far? Anyone? See, you can't expect us to have a 2-hour discussion that includes everything. It's not possible, right? I'm just giving you a very high level overview, telling you this website, that channel, this is the right person, to give you a sense of what all is there. The rest is your hard work, right? You guys will have to, like, my role is in data analytics. So that's where my expertise is. How do I know about these other areas? Because I teach at these companies, right? I've taught BCG, I teach at PwC EY regularly, right? D Shaw is a client. So because I interact with these people so much, I know exactly how they work, right? I've taught over 10,000 participants at PwC and EY. So I know exactly what is their work life, what are the challenges, what are the good things that you get, right? Where do these people come from? After spending 10 years in the industry, where do they land, right? So things like that. Let's just wait for a minute if anybody wants to ask anything so far. All good? All right. Now, in Big Four, you have, of course, different areas. I'll not cover this in detail because you can find this from the website of any firm. But, and also this is mostly in finance and accounting, consulting, not so much, but usually have assurance, advisory, audit risk, consulting, tax. Tax is transaction advisory services, forensics, and M&A. Of course, there are many other areas as well, but these are the big ones that are there. Okay, now I want to talk about, now that we know how to prepare and what links to watch, let's talk a little bit more about the process and the tools that you need to learn, right? Now, there are some terms that are very important. Now, all of you know what a tender is, correct? But when you're doing, especially when you're doing government bids, it is very important to understand that there would be a tender. Tender would be in the case of private bids as well sometimes, right? So how does a tender look? I'm just thinking, how should I show it to you? Because most of this is confidential. Let's wait. It doesn't matter. I can open any one. Okay. So usually when a tender comes, there is a notice that is published. This is for government work. Government work does not mean just construction, road, machinery. It can also refer to consulting work. Like right now, we have bid for a project for the Gujarat government for training school students in across government schools and colleges, right? So we are going to teach them data analytics. It's a one-year engagement, and we have just bid for that. So it was like a 50-page document containing all these details. So typically, this is what a bid will contain. It will have details about, in a lot of detail, it will tell you exactly what all needs to be done, right? Right now, there is not a lot of legal documentation. That all comes later, but usually a bid happens. And how do you bid? In a bid, we usually have two things. We have technical and financial. This is very standard across all types of tenders. So we usually refer to it as technical and financial. Technical talks about your technical capability. That means that, have you done this work in the past? Do you have the adequate resources? Can you mobilize them? Financial is going to speak from a financial perspective. How much are you going to charge? Are you costlier or cheaper than the other bids that are there in the market? Now, what happens is that finance will only come later if you do not have technical. That means that if they require you to have 50 people working full time and you don't have that, then there's no point. Why should the financial bid matter, right? Finance always comes later. And then there are different types of auctions available. Right? Again, I'm not getting into too much detail, but auction happens of different types. So one is a blind auction where you say that whatever is the minimum price that somebody quoted, there were 5 people, each of them put a bid. Whoever had the minimum price, assuming that all of them met the technical requirement, they get the project, right? Then there are different, so that is what is a blind one, that's a sealed bid. Then you have different types. You have increasing price auction, you have decreasing price auction. Right? Again, I'll not get into details, just to know that, okay, in a bid, in a tender, there is financial and technical, and there are auctions, that is enough for you. Now, what are the components in this bid? So there is a ranking given. For example, there'll be different points allocated to different things. For example, if I have done, let's say I'm applying for a project in training for the Gujarat government. If I've already done some training for the UP government, I get some extra points because I have done some similar work earlier, right? If I have somebody in my team who's from the education sector, I get some more bonus points. Like this, there are different points allotted for different categories. And basically they add everything up and they tell you are 81 out of 100 or 61 out of 100, like that. So whenever government projects are won by a BCG or a PwC, this is what happens. The government releases a bid, different people can bid for it. And then depending on the rank and the score that you get, you win it. Now, let's come more to a corporate angle. This is all government work, no? 90% of the work will be in the corporate sector. In the corporate sector, we call something called a RFP, right? Which is a request for proposal. So what that means is that an RFP basically is just a bid, but we call it an RFP usually in the corporate sector. An RFP means that if you are a company, let's say you are Vedanta, and I am the consultant, you will say, Havish, this is the RFP. We are requesting a proposal from you, right? So you will say, Havish, you send us a proposal. So I will create a proposal and I'll send it to you. I will say that, okay, this is what I'm planning. This is the cost. This is the plan of action. And this is how I expect to deliver it, right? Like that. So there are a few different types available. So we have a request for quotation, we have a request for proposal, we have a request for information. But RFP is typically what we need, right? Okay, now let me also show you how a proposal looks, right? Give me a moment. So I will show you something that I have shown to Adani recently, okay? Client projects and Adani. Just thinking, why can't I find it? Just give me a moment. Sit in the other one. Okay. So this is a proposal that I have submitted to them. So I'm planning to do a training for Adani Transmission, and I'm sharing with them what is it that I'm planning to do, right? Just go through it. So I'm saying that I will do a training in capability building, which is a handholding session on VBA and Power BI, right? What is the objective? It is to empower participants to use VBA and create dashboards. After the training, they will be able to understand how to solve business problems and automate tasks without any external assistance. And they can also impart basic level training to other people. So what is the outline? They'll be trained on the foundation of VBA and Power BI. It will be a hands-on session. I will first understand what their needs are. I will give them projects to work on. I will give them feedback on their work. All their queries will be answered. Then I'll give them more advanced topics. And then I will answer their queries when they start to work. So this is the process that I have created. Okay. After that, I've written the number of hours that are there, that I will give them some videos and documentation as well. Then there's the commercial. And then we have, so how many hours will I be spending? How much will I be charging them? And then I have what are the topics that will be covered in this. So it's very simple, nothing out of the ordinary, but I just wanted to show you that this is exactly what we are expected to send to a client, right? Now, there is no outline for this. There is no template for it that, oh, it has to be done in a certain way. You can do it however you want, right? Now, from a project perspective, I have to fill up certain things. So there is something called a SOW. SOW is very important. So that's why I've written it here. SOW. SOW is referred to as the scope of work, right? Actually, it's statement of work, or let's just call it the scope of work, right? The scope of work or the statement of work, as it suggests, is basically just a document that tells what will be covered in this consulting training engagement, and it will tell what will not be covered. That is very important. See, what will happen is that when you're doing a project for a few lakhs, or in certain cases, multiple lakhs, after 15 days, the client will say, oh, are you not going to cover this? And then there is an argument that, okay, I said this, you said that, we discussed this over an email. So the SOW is very important for both parties, right? We consider them two parties because both the parties understand that this is exactly what will be covered, and that is it. So if it says 5 hours, it will be 5 hours. It will not be 5.5. It will not be 4.5. I have to cover 5 and nothing more. And if there is a scope for any modification or any update, we say that, you know, there is a possibility that it might increase or decrease like that. So this is what is called the SOW. How does an SOW look? This is the SOW that I have to sign from mine. So this is saying that this is an MIS automation training job. I'll be doing training and development. There will be maximum 15 participants. So what does that mean? That tomorrow, if they say, Havish, why don't you take 17 participants? I can go back and say, no, in the SOW, it says maximum 15. So it cannot be increased, right? Then they have this post-training, I'll give a project. I should review the project. So after the project, if I tell them, no, I don't have the time to review your work, then they can come back and say, Havish, you have signed on this that you have to review their projects, right? Like this. Then there is also a timeline given. Within 1 month is the training, and 2 months is the after training support that we're giving, right? Then obviously there will be a lot of legal document at the back end. So you have to legally agree to different points. So you have to say, I don't apply, it doesn't apply to me. Right? That would be the legal side of it. Then you create something called a price schedule, where you say that, okay, this is the price that I'm going to charge. Right? Then what is the billing period? So we usually say, let's say T plus 30. T plus 30 means from the date of submitting the invoice, you will get the payment in 30 working days, right? For example, I'm doing a project that started today on the 21st of July. So it will end on the 20th of June. But I submitted an invoice on the 22nd of June. So I will expect my payment till, 30 days post that, 30 working days. That is standard in the industry. That can be decided, 15 days, 30 days, 45 days. Usually what happens in government projects for very large projects is that they say that if you pay in time, you get a discount. So let's say somebody has purchased products from me, okay? So I am telling the government or any other party that you have purchased something from me. I manufacture cables, right? Somebody has purchased cables from me. So I'll tell them, if you pay me within 15 days, I will give you a 0.05% discount. If you pay me, in 1 day, you will get a 2% discount. So the idea here is that when you're talking in 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 1.5 crore, you want people to pay you faster from a cash flow perspective, right? And you're willing to offer them a discount for that. Because if you even keep 1.5 crore in a account, you're going to earn interest on it every day, aren't you? For example, if you look at the financial model of a lot of fintech firms, how does that work? So right now, all my courses that I sell it on a website called InstaMojo. This is what I'm selling. Now, what InstaMojo does is, these are payments that I'm receiving, but InstaMojo does not transfer me my money on the same day. They transfer it typically after 2 to 3 days. Now, you might say, okay, what difference does it make? To me, it doesn't make much of a difference. How does it matter whether it's 1 day or 2 days? But the difference, everyone, is that because they are going to pay after 2 to 3 days, and there are thousands of customers like me, so there are multiple crores that are floating, they're earning an interest on that. So because that 2 to 3 days, they are saving the money, no, they're not transferring the money yet. That is where they're saving money, right? These are more nuanced concepts of finance, which Sanjay will be covering, but I'm just giving you a perspective that how important it is to deal with even days. People say, what difference does it make if I get the payment after 1 day? But from a cash flow perspective, you need money when you need it, right? So that is very important to manage. So I've shown you the SOW, the scope of work or the statement of work. I've told you how tenders and bids work. I've told you how the approach note, the RFQ works, right? Or the RFP. Then you have a BRD and an FRD. This is typically after you agree that, yes, we are going to work on this project. we prepare a BRD and a FRD. This is a requirement document. So I'm asking the client, what is it exactly that you need? See, the scope of work is not very detailed. The scope of work will just give you a very high level overview. But if you want to know the details, we prepare what is called a BRD and an FRD. Right? So BRD is what is called a business requirement document, which is a high level business need. And then you have a FRD, which is a functional need, which is more detailed in nature. And let me show you how that works, right? So I want to come to Sterlite, and let's come to Kamal. Let's come to BRD. So I was doing a project with the client, a data analytics project, and this is what they gave to me. They say that, Havish, this is my business requirement document. This was actually a FRD. So what are they saying here? They're saying that these are the analysis that I want from the data. Remember when we were working on the HR data on all the Power BI Tableau dashboards, I was telling you, let's do this, let's do that. But the client has specific requirements. So the client says, I want to find the total headcount. I want to know the geographical distribution. I want to know the business unit wise distribution, function wise, grade wise, location wise, tenure, age, gender diversity, total headcount, like this. And you can see how many things are there, right? And they're also telling me how to get it. What is the formula that they expect I will have to write, right? Like if I say, what are new joiners? New joiners meaning if new joiners have joined in a particular month, first of the month till the last date of the month, field will be added. And where is the data going to come from? So it will come from SharePoint, SQL, Excel, right? From different places. Like in this case, it is either coming from HRMS or from SharePoint. This is a document which tells me what their requirements are. So this is like a checklist. I have to make sure that each one of these things I have to do. So first the RFP comes where the request for a proposal, I give the proposal. Once it is accepted, then they tell me what is their requirement, which is BRD and FRD, and then I deliver the project for them. This is the typical process of a consulting assignment. Whether it's in data consulting or otherwise, usually you will have these things. Great. Any questions, anyone? That's a very good question. So it is done in combination. So RFP will be created by the client because they are requesting for it. Proposal will be created by me because I'm sending it to them, right? But the BRD FRD is done in a conversation, right? So obviously when the BRD is being prepared, I will also give my inputs. What is possible, what is not possible. That something will take more time, something will take less time, like that. Legal paperwork is done by both parties, which means that my legal team and their legal team has to discuss things like confidentiality, whether I can share the work with, like, you notice that I'm not showing you a lot of things because I can't. I'm not allowed to share it. It's all confidential data, right? And confidential doesn't mean that it is confidential only till the project is active. Even after the project is over, I'm still not allowed to share that, this is the data that I have. For example, on LinkedIn, you will see that I don't post my trainings for PwC and EY because the understanding is that I cannot post on LinkedIn that I'm training PwC and EY. Right? That's a part of the contract that we have, right? So that's the contractual agreement that we have. Any questions, anyone? It's common everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. See, any project that you're working on, there will be paperwork, isn't it? Even if you know the client and you have been working together for 5 years, it will still have to be legally done, right? So what I'm showing you are just generic things. It's not pertaining to one sector or one example. That's why I did a Google search to show you that these are general terms: RFP, tender, contract, SOW, BRD, FRD. These are all general terms that all of you should be aware of. Right? So not just consulting or data analytics consulting, any consulting work that you're doing, any professional services work that you're doing, right? For a client, these things will be required. Regarding the salary, data analyst roles often pay less than 8. Very vague question, but why is it like that? See, it's a question of experience as well. So whether you are joining as a fresher, which is your first data analyst role, or if you are, joining in a different profile, that matters a lot. And the thing is that while a lot of people are saying that data analysts are in shortage and, there are so many more jobs and, we don't have people. The truth is that a lot of people are doing courses in data. And right now, a lot of requirement is for very basic things, intermediate level of Excel, some basic level of Power BI, and you're getting jobs. I think I showed it to you yesterday. How many jobs are coming in IT firms? Look at this. This came yesterday. The top 4 IT firms in the country are hiring 1.5 lakh freshers. I think TCS is going to hire 40,000 people this year. 40,000 people. Can you imagine how large that number is? But most of these are in entry level profiles. These are engineers. Some of your engineers, you know how it is. They just come to a college, they take 600 people, right? Because these are entry level profiles that are there, right? So the point is, when it comes to salaries, I don't really know what to say. But what I can tell you is that you can grow very fast, right? Because as long as you're acquiring the correct skills, as long as you are learning some new tool, like let me give you Sanjay's example. Sanjay joined ABB Hitachi on contract, okay, for a 1-year contract, working with an external vendor, right? He did his Power BI certification. Let me tell you exactly and explain to you perfectly what I want. Watch, wait a minute. Sanjay did his Power BI certification, I think on the 30th of June. So I'll have to scroll back a little bit. And we also see how frequently Sanjay posts. Every day he has posts that come on LinkedIn. So he's building his own credibility in the market, right? So just a little bit more. Must be about 3 weeks. Okay, look at this. On the 30th of June, he said that this is my post on the Power BI series. I passed my DA 100 exam today, which is the Power BI certificate. It's a very tough exam. I cleared mine last year. Trust me, it was very tough. And he posted it that I cleared my exam. 1 week later, his super boss said that we want to hire you full time. Because once you clear a certification, an organization knows that, and he got a hike after 2 months, right? So the point is that because he did the certification, people know that, you know what, this can't be fluke. It's not luck that he just managed to clear it. It's a 2.5-hour exam and it's very difficult. If he has cleared it, that means that he's actually working very hard. And in addition to his work, he's learning a lot of new things. And he did it, he cleared it, and he got a full-time role and a salary hike in 2 months of joining. I'm giving you a live example, right? And that's the point I'm trying to get across. Sure, you might maybe join at a salary bracket that might not be super attractive, but then the growth can be much faster. So rather than waiting for 1 year to get that 7% hike, you can grow very fast, because as long as you're able to show to the client, to your company, that I'm doing certifications, I'm doing what is called something called micro credentials, which are basically certificate courses, right? As long as you're able to tell them that, see, I'm doing this and I'm also learning in addition to my work, organizations are more than happy to, give you that accelerated growth. See, that time has gone when people would work very hard and they would wait till the month of February to get a promotion. That's not true at all. Organizations are more than happy to retain good employees, right? So that means that your cycle of increment can also be faster if you are working hard, right? So What kind of certifications to do for consulting, for financial consulting? See, Ankit, there are no certifications as such, because I mean, in finance, you have, let's say, a CFA, right? But that is very different, because that means that you will have to prepare very hard to clear a CFA, and maybe you don't want to become a financial analyst to that extent. So honestly, there are no certifications as such, but you can do these online certifications on Udemy and EDX. There are a lot of them. So if you go to EDX, like you have courses on corporate finance, I mean, very specific courses on different topics. So you can pick these, and these add value to your profile. Right? Yeah, but as such, it's not that in the industry there is one cert, like PMP, that's a project management certification. Power BI, there is one certification. It's not like that. The certification is for the tool mostly. So you will do an Excel certification or a Power BI certification, like that. Okay. You have an interest in tech and stats. Can I go into certain profiles that use machine learning roles through? See, guys, don't come back to the GBO MBA thing, okay? It's an MBA program. But that doesn't mean you're only going to compete with MBAs. There is a boy, I remember his name, just give me a moment. But I completely forgotten. One second. Completely forgot. Anyway, so there's a boy, he is from IIT BHU. Right? Let me just search one more time. If not, then I'll. No, I can't seem to find him, which is a little strange because should have been here. Anyway, he is doing his integrated BTech in industrial chemistry, right? And he's pursuing, and he's going to create a portfolio in machine learning. That doesn't just doesn't make sense. So industrial chemistry, 5-year integrated bachelor's and master's is his BTech and MTech, and he's going to get into ML. The point I'm trying to make is that, Ankit, you're going to compete with everybody out there. There might be a graduate student from Delhi University or IP University, whatever it is, who is also going to compete with you in an ML role. And for an ML role, your MBA is not really the important factor. Sure, it will help, but then it is more on the analytics side. It is about how good are you with ML. So if you want to be in ML, you can't just say that I'm an MBA, so I'm better than others. No, you will have to show them how are you better at your ML knowledge than other people who you're competing with, because you will be competing with people from very varied backgrounds, right? Just give me 1 minute. Let me see if I can find his name, because I like to share his profile with you. I'm searching right now, just a minute. And yeah, got it. His name is Jay Dhanwat. Right? Look at his profile. Look at the first 4 lines: data, strategy, AI, algorithmic programming. Right? And now when you look at his profile, he is doing his integrated dual degree in industrial chemistry. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? And but look at the type of projects he's doing. He's doing his internship as a data scientist. Look at the type of projects he has done here, right? Most of the work, I would say 80% of the work he has done has not been related to industrial chemistry at all, right? Because he's very clear. He said, I don't want to get a job in this area. I want to work exclusively in data. So what I'm trying to tell you is not a good or a bad thing. I'm just giving you a very realistic picture that if you're in data, for example, has anybody asked me till now, so what is your background? No. Does it matter? Of course not. If I'm going to teach you Power BI and Tableau, and you ask me 10 questions, and every time I say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, I'll have to come back to you, what impression will I create? You will think he doesn't know what he's teaching, right? My point is that I need to know the answer. I need to be good at what I do. I'm a commerce student, right? Till 2014, I did not know any coding, but now I'm an expert coder, right? The point I'm trying to make is that if you want to be in ML, Ankit, you have to be good at it. That's it. That MBA, trust me, is going to help you a little bit. If there is an option between a non-MBA and an MBA, of course you will get a preference, right? Or if there's an MBA from a mid-tier college or from an SRCC, you will get a slight advantage. But the first thing they're going to ask you is that these are 5 questions on ML. Can you answer it? Other things will only come in the HR interview after that, right? I hope that makes sense. All right. What are some good certifications of Excel for us? See, from a learning perspective, you are already learning from this course. I've already given you access to Teachable, and all of you will be getting a certificate from my side. Let me also show you how the certificate will look. It will be something a little more detailed than this, but basically you get a certificate from my side with the SRCC logo, with a unique number so that it's identifiable, which will say that you have done a 36-hour course on so and so. So covering data analytics, this, right? And I'm a Microsoft partner. There aren't so many of them. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm a Microsoft Office specialist, and I'm a Power BI data analyst associate. Right? So because I'm certified, that credibility of the certificate also goes higher, right? So this is something you're going to get. Honestly, I don't think you need to do any more certifications as such. In addition to, if you do everything that I have given you, that is more than enough from a certification point of view. From a learning point of view, there is so much to learn. Like when you go on YouTube, okay, I'll tell you one website. Don't go anywhere else. I think I mentioned this earlier as well, exceljet.net. This is the one website that all of you should see, right? Don't go anywhere else. This is more than enough. Right? Absolutely more than enough. Anything that you search for here, if I search for VLOOKUP, it will give you all the examples that you seek. And believe you me, in an interview, you show them a certificate that I've done a 40-hour course. Trust me, today, I don't think there's any B school student who does not have a certificate. Let's be honest. What is going to matter more is when you tell them that, see, I have created 3 projects. Or you tell them that I know advanced Excel and I know the difference between VLOOKUP, index match, offset, indirect, and XLOOKUP. You understand what I'm saying, right? This is what a recruiter wants to hear. 7, 8, 10 years back, if somebody used to say, I've done a certificate, it was huge because certificates were very limited. They were quite expensive and not a lot of people were doing it, right? Now certificates are free. You are undergoing this training from the institute for which the institute is paying. But for you, you're not paying any additional money for this, correct? But then there are a lot of free certificates out there. Now, when you prepare a resume and you say that I have done a 40 hours course on Excel, another person will also say I've done a 25-hour course on Excel. What is the difference? Sure. When you say that I've done it from Havisham Consulting and in bracket you write Microsoft Certified Trainer, the value goes higher because the other person might not have done it from a MCT, from Microsoft Certified Trainer. But that is not enough. You have to convince them in the interview that you have learned these topics, right? So don't worry if you still want me to tell you exactly where to go to, like I told you the Faraj, right? In the beginning of the session. If you still want me to give you a list of all these things, I will provide you. Because see, all these things I know in my mind. So it will just take me 10, 15 minutes to put everything on one list. And when we have the final session, I'll just put everything on an email and send it across. Right? And if you want to do an Excel certification, then you have a Excel exam that Microsoft conducts called MO200. This will cost you 3,500 rupees. This is officially by Microsoft. It's not very difficult, but of course you will have to, I mean, you can't just give it today. You will first have to practice quite a lot, but it will cost you. Why is it not changing the price? I don't know. Anyways, 3,500 rupees. And you can even give it from your home, right? It can be online proctored. So you can do that. So this is the one, MO200, which is the Excel certification. Actually, I have also not given mine because I have given my 2013 and 2016, and I don't feel like spending another 3,500 rupees. But yeah, I mean, if you're giving it, why should you give the old one? You should give the new one, right? MO200. I think with maybe 3 to 6 months of preparation, you should be able to give this, right? And this will have a lot of value in the market. See, Udemy, EDX, and all are okay, but many people are doing it, right? Like to share with you, I'm doing that course from Harvard, right? The one I told you about, the one on data science principles. There are 40,000 people around the world who have done that course. I mean, the point I'm trying to tell you is that that's okay. Even 40,000 is not a very large number. So this certification is very precious because not a lot of people will have the capability of clearing it. So you should first give some mock exams, make sure you're very comfortable with Excel, and then you should do this. Right? Don't do this in a hurry. Right? And then once you clear the basic one, you also have a Microsoft Office Specialist, which is an associate. Right? This will be the second level. You can see the learning path. So they also tell you what all will be covered in this exam. So how to import data, how to navigate worksheets, how to format, how to customize options, print area, working with formulas, formatting, charts, tables. Then you have some basic function. Do you see we have covered all of these? Average, max, min, sum, count, count blank, if, right, left, mid, upper, lower, length, concatenate, text join. Everybody agrees with me? We have not left out even one topic from this, right? We have done charts. That's it. This is what is covered. So there is no Visual Basic, Power Query, all of that. So that's why the exam is not everything. Like even if you clear it, to be very honest with you, it doesn't mean that you're an expert in Excel because it doesn't cover many topics in Excel. It is just basics of Excel, but sure, it has a lot of value in the market, the M0200. Right? Okay. Okay, I have a few more things to show. So let me quickly do that. There's a website called youexec.com, youexec.com, right? And what you have on UExec is basically free PowerPoints available. And this will teach you many things. One, it will teach you how to make good slides. Remember, next week we have a session on PowerPoint as well, which I'll be conducting for you. So when I log in, let me quickly sign in. And you can do this with a free account. You don't need to have a paid account. So when you go to UExec, do you see all this? These are presentations that are available for free. Look at all this. Amazing, right? And this will do two things. Number one, it will teach you how to make good presentations, which is very important for an MBA student. In consulting or in any other area, presentations are presentations. They will always be there. Also, it will teach you different topics like customer acquisition, sales strategy, brand positioning, value proposition, the VRIO framework, right? Which is a financial framework like this. Let me just open one of them. So let's say business benchmarking, right? Click, download, and look at the quality of this presentation, everyone. I don't think you would ever have seen anything like this earlier. Look at this. Amazing, isn't it? And this is not just random text that they have put in. This is all relevant. So they've talked about direct advantages and indirect advantages, right? Like this. And the best part is, so this is a project calendar. Like this, there are many slides. The best part is that all of this is editable. So you can just click and write anything you want, right? If you want to make a new box, you can use circle. Just make a new circle. Like this. So the website is UXEC, that would be YOUEXEC. Do keep in mind that with the free account, you cannot download the entire presentation. You will be able to download 5 slides or 7 slides, but that is more than enough. I had a paid account, so I can download everything for free, the complete thing, but you will be able to download only 5 to 7 slides. But still, it is great so that you can see what type of presentations and what is the type of quality of slides that you're expected to present as a consultant or any other profile, right? And of course, I have a session on PowerPoint, so I'll be teaching these things in more detail to you. Okay? That's one website. The second website I wanted to share with you was Lucid. The website is called lucid.app, lucid.app. See, as a consultant, you're expected to articulate your thoughts. You can't just say, okay, let's talk about your requirements. No, you can't just say that, okay, let me tell you how will I teach you? You have to prepare a structure, a layout, right? And that can be done on lucid.app. What can you do here? So when I click on new, you can see that there are so many templates available like this. There are reports, there are dashboards, there are project flows like this. There are like hundreds of these templates available. Amazing, right? Now, obviously, a lot of it is paid, but you will find many of them for free as well. I have a paid account, but you should find many of them for free as well. So let's look at something on brainstorming ideas. Look at this. This is called the mind map. Amazing, right? Could you have created this manually? It would have been almost impossible, right, to do this. And it's so easy to do it on Lucidchart. So if you look at the type of things that I have created on Lucid, all of this I have created, right? So let me just open one of them for you. So I always tell my students who are doing their live project with me that whenever you're presenting anything to me, you have to present it on a diagram like this. Right? Anyway, what is the context here? That is not important. I'm just showing you how very nicely we can present something like this. Okay, I don't think I've left out anything. So we have covered Big Four, Big Three, other firms. I've told you Victor Cheng. Consulting case interviews you can find online. Similarly, you can find guesstimates online as well. That is the type of question that is asked. So they will ask you a question like, okay, so they will say, if you are the manager for Shah Rukh Khan, this is, by the way, a question that actually gets asked in a lot of interviews. They say that if you're the manager for Shah Rukh Khan, what will you suggest to SRK for his brand image for the next 5 years? You know, I mean, it seems like such a childish question, but it is also so difficult, right? Because you really have to think about it. You can't just give a simple answer. You have to create an entire plan of action. Guesstimates can also be on the lines of, how many windows do you think are there in the Delhi airport? Now, how the hell will anybody know how many windows are there in the Delhi airport? But you know what they're looking at? They're looking at the flow. They're not really looking at a correct answer. Probably they also don't know the correct answer. I don't think anybody knows how many windows are there. But the point is they want to know what is the flow. So you will say that, okay, we know there are 3 terminals in the Delhi airport. So T1, T2, T3. And of course, the size differs, T3 being the largest. T3 has bays in it, right? T1, T2 means that you have to take a transit bus. So, you know, this is the flow that you have to look at. So you will say that assuming that there are 20 exits that I have, and each exit on an average has X number of windows, then I can do an X into the number. So this is the flow that they're looking at. So when you Google it, interview type questions, these are type of questions that you will find on the internet as well, right? So BCG interview, right? So standard questions like, why do you want to be in consulting? Why do you want to work with the firm? Walk me through the resume. So you don't need to know your resume inside out, right? Every single word that you've written in the resume, you should be comfortable with. This is also a very standard question. Tell me something which is not there on your resume. Career plan is very important. Everybody, at least in consulting, everybody is going to ask you these questions, right? And like this, you can just Google it. And I mean, I can't tell you any one website from where you will find all this, but you can just Google it, and you'll find many different websites that I have explained to you how to prepare for these roles. Right? Like this is the case interview. How do you solve the case that they give it to you? Right? They've also given some sample cases here. Like I said, everything you need is on the website and on the official website. You don't even have to go anywhere else. It's just that you have to spend a lot of time and effort. Hard work is what is required to be able to, prepare for all of this. Right? Great. Yeah, I think I've covered everything from my side, which I wanted to. So the session was primarily about helping you understand as a consultant, what are the things that are there. Consulting doesn't just mean creating a dashboard and creating visualization. It is also about understanding the client requirement, preparing paperwork, creating slides, right? So it's a combination of all these things that you have to like to do. Anyone, any questions? Right? So I have already shared the revised timetable with you, but I'll walk you through it once again. So tomorrow we have a brand new topic that will get started. So tomorrow we start with programming, introduction, absolute basis of programming with Anubhav. The time is 9 to 11 and 12 to 2. Okay, so not 9 to 11, 11:30 to 1:30. It's 12 to 2. Just keep that in mind. We continue that an introduction to MLAI on Friday. On Saturday, you have two sessions with Rohit and with Sanjay on design thinking and on finance for everyone. Monday, you again meet Anubhav for a session on blockchain, which we feel is a emerging technology and some bit of knowledge everybody should have about it. Then I will meet you again on Tuesday for a session on PowerPoint, which will be a hands-on session like Excel. And then one session on sustainability with Nikhil. Nikhil has over 25 years of experience in the corporate, leading global roles. He was in the US for 8 years. So he will give you an idea about how important sustainability is for organizations, right? Yeah. And then you have 3 days of preparation, during which I will be available. So any questions you have, you can reach out to me at any point of time. And like I said, the project is not something which you are uncomfortable with. So if you want to work on, I gave it a lot of thought. If you want to work on Power BI, I'm okay with it. If you want to work on Tableau, I'm okay with that, right? I'm giving you choice, but I'm just telling you, do not be in your comfort area. If you find something challenging, that is what you should do. You should not do something that you find easy. Something which you find easy and you are comfortable with, that you already know. What is the point of creating a project from that? You should create a project on something which you're not comfortable with. And even if you make mistakes, even if you're not very happy with the output, that's okay. It's the effort and it's the practice that matters more, right? This is not an exam in the sense that, no, everybody has to get 100 on 100. That's not really the point. The point is for you all to feel comfortable. So we'll discuss this more when we meet for the PowerPoint session. No, like I said, for the data set, I will be giving you data sets from my side. But if you want to look at a different data set of your own, you want to download something from Kaggle or from the internet, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to limit you that only take this or this or this. If you are interested in the automotive sector, right, and you want to create a presentation or a dashboard on the auto sector, please do that by all means. I'll be more than happy. Okay. Excellent. So thank you, everyone. And I will see you. I'll see you tomorrow. So I'll also join the session in the morning, but then I will leave and Anubhav will take it forward from there. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.